It's time for Prove All Things, a Bible discussion program on the Word of God. A panel of preachers will deal with your questions and comments. Prove all things, hold fast that which is good, abstain from all appearance of evil, and the very God of peace sanctify you wholly. This is Prove All Things. I was looking something up I had lost, and I just found it. Yahoo! This is Prove All Things. We're a Bible discussion program. This is number 234, and Alonzo is back. Alan's back.
Back again.
What'd you say your wife fixed for you tonight for dinner?
We had some kind of seasoned hamburgers. Exactly. I'm not exactly.
Hamburgers?
Yeah. Really very good though.
Good hamburgers?
Yeah, good hamburgers.
Not those lousy hamburgers.
No, these were good ones with some kind of a nice seasoning and a tomato and onion topping thing that was made up that was cooked up. It was all very good.
Very good.
Yeah.
Veggies with it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Oh,
roasted
good.
potatoes.
Well, good. We took a week off. I think, wasn't this your fault last week, Engineer Dave?
What?
Why we weren't on last week?
Okay, I'll take blame. Sure.
Thank you. You should. Here, this is Lois. And that's what I was looking for. I printed this out and I lost the printout, but I did find it. Lois wrote and says, "Hello, John. I'll try to make this a little shorter than my last message," she said, which I don't remember how long it was. It wasn't too bad, I don't think. She says, "What scripture did you reference?" Well, you're asking a lot, Lois, to expect me to remember that far back, but I think I know, and it is in the note. He says, it had something to do with looking back on our youth in tonight's 2 weeks ago, Prove All Things. No hurry for your answer, that's a good thing. Just in my spare time, said they enjoyed Jeff tonight. Jeff's not on tonight, but I did get a chance to talk to him today. But tell Alan to get back on the job. He is truly missed. Lois loved you.
Bless her heart.
For Lois, you are the star of the
Oh,
show.
bless her heart. That's
Very observant of her, right?
she probably liked Ed McMahon back when he was sidekicking with Johnny
I
Carson.
don't know. But anyway, the passage she's referring to, I just mentioned a reference to it last week, is in Ecclesiastes 7 in verse 10, where it warns old people like me. It says in verse 10, "Say not thou, what is the cause that the former days were better than these? For thou dost not inquire wisely concerning this." Here's the NIV. "Do not say, why were the old days better than these? It's not wise to ask such questions." Let's see, I'm looking at 2 or 3 versions. Here's the contemporary English version, which is always interesting to read. "It isn't wise to ask, why is everything worse than it used to be?" And there's a lot of that going around these days. It's a mistake. It's a mistake that old people like myself make. I had a great childhood, had a great time in school, I had a great time in high school. I wish I was still there. I had such a terrific time in high school. But to say that it's too bad that nobody has the wonderful times that I had is just foolish. I mean, if the kids today are that's their youth. They're having a good time. They're meeting people and falling in love and getting married, and they're having children, and it's their time. The world doesn't change that much. Yes, we elect new presidents and senators and there's policy changes and so forth, but you don't inquire wisely to say, hey, it's terrible now. There have been terrible times in the history of this country. There's been lousy presidents and lousy policies that the government has foisted on us over the years. But to say that today is worse than it used to be is foolish. What do you think?
I think we end up with somewhat of a selected memory, and somehow we tend to remember the good things better than we remember the bad things.
Yeah.
As you say, you think back to the days of your youth, and you can think of good times, and I can think back to the days of my youth. I think about sometimes my college days, for example, and I think about, oh, what fun I had. I had friends around, and as you pointed out, I was falling in love. I met my wife, the woman who's going to be my wife, and we dated, and it was just a great time. But every once in a while, I'll remember, I was broke most of the time. I was dead broke,
Yeah.
and it was having to scrimp and
And your girlfriend carried you through, right?
fair to some degree. She did. Yes,
If it
she
wasn't
did.
for her, you would have starved.
I would have starved or been killed by my bed sheets because they were starting to move of their own.
Yeah. Well, my mother harks back into the 20s, and down in her neighborhood there was a school that had been in this little country neighborhood. I think it was a 2 or 3 room building, and had been a teacher's college of sorts, as not large as today's colleges. But she always said bad things about FDR because the New Deal came in and they were going through doing make-work programs, and they tore down that old school and built
A modern school,
well,
maybe.
modern for them. But
Yeah.
she says it was nothing to be compared with the old school, and it probably wasn't. But there were nice buildings that were built and so forth. Maybe not that one, but there were nice buildings, and so it's the same thing. You do not speak wisely concerning this. I'm glad you had a good youth. I'm glad I had a great youth.
I see that same attitude, though, in the folks that they want to look at the events of going on today, and they'll want to seize on those events, and they'll somehow try to map them to certain Bible prophecies or certain Bible statements. And you've seen it over and over again. Oh, we're in the last days. Well, yes, we are in the last days. But they're thinking, oh, surely Christ is going to come any day now, any moment now. And they'll look at all the wars and rumors of wars and all of the things that they want to read out of the out of context, out of the New Testament and even out of the Old Testament. And they're, oh, surely this is us. And if you really wanted to, you could go back to virtually any time period in history and map some of these events to those events.
That period of time.
I've seen where people did that to the Napoleonic era, and they compared Napoleon to the Antichrist, and then it was the Civil War, and there was Jeff Davis was the Antichrist, and and on and on and on, or maybe Abraham Lincoln, depending on which side of the border you are on.
Well, that sort of thing goes on all the time. You have to live day by day. The Lord's taken awful good care of me.
Mm-hmm.
Most people I know have enjoyed their lives here in the good old U.S. of A. and prospered to a certain extent. And there's things that concern me, but I can remember in my youth, there was a certain famous preacher, since you brought that up, whose name shall remain anonymous.
Okay.
Who went around and he enjoyed preaching on the prophets. And so, because most of us didn't preach on the prophecies much, but he preached on the prophecies, and he related all those Old Testament prophets to modern day events.
Yes.
And it's like, wait a minute. There's nothing in those Old Testament prophets that even remotely relates to modern day events. Now,
Right.
there may be principles there to show, that the nation's cast off God, but beyond that, it's not certainly not specific.
Mhm.
You can see why God was angry with the Israelites for their rebellion and idolatry and greed and so forth. But that's been going on a long time: rebellion and idolatry and greed. So it's not. I don't think it's any worse today than it used to be, and it used to be pretty bad. So anyway, but Lois, that's a good question. I appreciate you for making me go out and find this verse, because last week I just kind of waved my hand at the Old Testament, and kept moving. I couldn't find it right away, and your question forced me after the program to say I better look that verse up. So I appreciate it, and looking forward to talking with you tonight about any Bible question or any Bible comment you might have. In case you haven't listened to us before, maybe we got a few new listeners out there. We're on 2 platforms, hopefully. Are we on 2 platforms?
Yep.
We're on YouTube and we're on Facebook Live. And there's a section on YouTube where you can comment, ask questions, complain, disagree. And the same thing, everybody knows how to do it on Facebook. So one of these guys will be telling me what your question, comment, disagreement is, and we'll try to deal with it here on the air. Program's brought to you by the High School Road Church of Christ, 3103 North High School Road here in Indianapolis, Indiana. And we trust all of you are having a good holiday season. Our kids here in Indiana finally got out of school today, or the other day. They're having a big time. And today was warm. I think tomorrow's going to be warmer, right? And then we've got to enjoy it while we can, and then the bottom is going to drop out. So, anyway.
Yeah, we're going to lose something like 30 degrees between tomorrow and Friday.
And I don't know what it is about the weatherman, but I have never known the weatherman not to predict snow on Christmas Eve. Have you?
I can remember a few times they did not, yeah.
The weather Nazis. So they're doing it again this year, but we'll see. We'll survive that too, I suppose. But we're looking forward to talking with you. High School Road, 3103 North High School Road here in Indianapolis. Have we got anybody out there tonight, Engineer Dave?
I'm seeing a few that are listening, but that's all they're doing is listening.
Uh,
I got a question.
what?
I got a question.
All right, what's your question?
Well, I was teaching a Bible class for the kids, and the book that I'm reading, I don't know what to think of it. But so I thought I would ask here and see what you guys think of it. But the title of the chapter was The Doctrine of the Nicolaitans.
Mm-hmm. Revelation?
Yes. Yeah. Now, this writer's theory was that Nicholas the Proselyte started the Nicolaitans.
Oh, yeah?
Now, his theory is that because he was a proselyte, he started off as a pagan, moved to Judaism, and then moved to Christianity. And that's what I wanted. Number one, I wanted to ask: does the fact that Nicholas the Proselyte, does that mean he was a pagan? I don't know quite. I guess I don't know that idea. And is there any validity to that idea?
What book was this you were reading? Was this a class book?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, the kids, there's a lot of conjecture here.
Really? I'm not going to hesitate to ask who that was who wrote that.
You know him.
Yeah, I do. I think I know who you're talking about. Okay.
I believe that's in Acts 6 where the Nicholas the proselyte is mentioned.
Yeah, but
And then in Revelation where the Nicolaitans is found.
Acts 6 in that list of
The 7 deacons.
yeah, the 7 deacons. So he went bad. Is that the idea?
The idea is he started the Catholic Church.
Oh yeah.
Well, to some extent.
Okay. Conjecture is all that is.
How about the proselyte though? Does that mean he was a pagan? I don't know where he picked up on that.
It means he wasn't. He was a Jewish proselyte. He would have been circumcised and so forth, but he was actually a Greek.
Yeah, he would have been a convert,
Oh, yes.
a Greek convert to Judaism.
Yeah.
That idea, Dave, comes from Irenaeus, who Irenaeus wrote that the following. He says, the Nicolaitans are followers of that Nicholas, who is one of the 7 first ordained to the deaconate by the apostles. And that was Irenaeus who wrote that. When was Irenaeus? About 150 so years after the New Testament,
something like that.
So it's Irenaeus that puts that idea forward, and
Sir Tertullian mentions a 2nd century sect of the Nicolaitans, but it's just conjecture. Revelation 2:14, he's mentioned, the Nicolaitans are mentioned in verse 6 and in verse 15. In 14, I have a few things against thee, because thou hast there them that hold the doctrine of Balaam, who taught Balak to cast a stumbling block before the children of Israel, to eat things sacrificed to idols, to commit fornication. And some believe that that's what the doctrine of the Nicolaitans was, although that's not exactly the way the text reads. Verse 14 reads that way. 15 seems to say there's another group there that had told this doctrine of the Nicolaitans. But these fellows that are writing this conjecture that you're seeing is hundreds of years later. I noticed that Irenaeus and Hippolytus take that to be the Nicholas of Acts 6, but finding anything authoritative that indicates whether that's true or not is a different thing.
yeah, according to what I'm reading here, Eusebius says
That was 300 years
that was
later.
300 years later, and Eusebius though says that this was effectively a slander against Nicholas,
Yeah.
where they were trying to use his name to authenticate what they were teaching.
Legitimize.
Yeah, legitimize.
Okay.
So who knows?
Okay. Does that help any?
Yeah.
Did this guy teach that in this class or in the book, or did he conjecture it?
He conjectured it.
Okay. We'll let him do that. Although there's nothing in the text. All right. No, there's nobody out there. There ought to be 2 or 3 experts who would tell us all about Revelation 2.
It must be too cold in Canada because our Canadians are not on with us tonight either.
Oh, what I heard today, I think, are they on lockdown up there? I read something about that. I'm trying to get a passport so I can travel to Canada here in June or in January, maybe February. But I'm a little worried they're going to lock the border down. It may be now. I don't know. Do you guys, anybody else here want to go to Ottawa in
February?
January, February?
Pass.
Yeah, it's not exactly a sightseeing trip that I'm going to try to make up there. What?
Oh, nothing. I left. That's my fault, Facebook and everyone else. I left the chart on a little too long there.
Oh. Well, they missed seeing Alan, didn't they? All right. Well, if we're not going to hear from somebody, we're going to go to our phone bank. We'd a lot rather hear from you live. Let me make sure I've got everything working copacetically to get this going. Here, turn that up a little bit. Here we go.
The Bible says that you're healed by faith. Jesus asked many of them, have you got faith? And if you don't have faith to believe, you can't get the miracle, and you can't see it either because that's a spiritual thing.
Says you got to have faith or you don't get the miracle. What about that, Alan?
That's a rather interesting viewpoint.
It's kind of I'm having trouble understanding if you got to have faith to get the miracle. How did the widow of Nain's son get raised? He was dead.
Yeah, he was dead.
Lazarus, how was he raised? He was dead. The miracle that he performed, for instance, Jesus fed the thousands. The bread didn't have any faith per se. It was just bread. The little boy that got the fish and the loaves from, I don't think he thought he was going to feed 5,000 people with that.
Yeah, there's a lot of cases where, Jesus approached somebody, and they didn't approach him. Jesus approached somebody, and said, "Okay, do this." They wouldn't have known Jesus necessarily from anybody.
Yeah, in John 9, the man born blind.
Yeah.
Said, "Who art thou?"
Yeah. Here's John 5, for example, where he's, this is at the pool of Bethesda.
Yeah.
And there's the man laying there. And Jesus, Jesus saw him lying there and knew that he'd been there a long time in that condition, said to him, "Will you be made whole?" And the invalid man said, "Sir, I have no man with the waters choking to put me in the pool, but while I'm coming, another steps in before me." Again, no indication he had no idea who Jesus was. Jesus said unto him, "Rise, take up your bed and walk." And immediately the man was made whole. No, I don't see a faith work there. Jesus gave the command, and boom, it was done. The man was made whole. And then he took up his bed. It wasn't like, oh, he'll struggle up and whatever because he has great faith. No, he apparently could sense the healing in his body and was able to stand up and take up his bed.
But yeah,
Brian answered your question. He said, "The border is closed and has been for months. You will not be able to come. Total lockdown beginning December 24th in Ontario."
Oh, good.
well,
I wonder if they're going to let Santa in, or if they're going to try and shoot him
Santa's,
down.
yeah, where is he coming from?
North Pole. It's a short trip, but
Well, phooey.
yeah, to go on, John.
Wait, I haven't reacted enough to Canada
No, I got a
closing
little bit more. You
Okay,
gotta bear
okay.
with me. You
I
gotta
got a
bear
little
with me.
bit too. Go
Verse
ahead.
13. Verse 12. They asked him, "What man was it that said to you, take up your bed and walk?" And he that was healed knew not who it was.
There you go.
Now, you telling me faith was required? I don't think so.
Well, I'll give you another one. In Acts 13, Elymas the sorcerer was struck blind.
Yeah.
I don't think he had any faith that Paul could do that.
Yeah.
He was fighting Paul tooth and nail. So,
So this fellow.
yes, there are several instances where the Lord asked people if they had faith, but there's a lot of them where, you're limiting Jesus. Jesus was powerless to
Yeah.
heal or to affect someone or something that didn't have faith in him. If we don't have faith, we can nullify God. I don't think so. I think you ought to rethink that just a little bit. This has sort of been the excuse that a lot of faith healers use.
Yes.
That if somebody comes up there and you got a broken leg or something, and they obviously can't heal the broken leg, then
you didn't have enough faith.
you didn't have enough faith. That's an excuse.
Yeah. It's a.
Jesus never once said, "I'm sorry, I can't do this. You don't have enough faith."
It's a dodge.
It's a dodge. Now, Jesus asked several if they had faith, but he never said, "Oh, no, can't do anything now. You don't have any faith." Even in Nazareth, when he went back to Nazareth, one of the Gospels, I can't find all this quick enough, so I may have to wait till next week. It says that he could do there no mighty works. And so a lot of people say, well, obviously they didn't have any faith. That's not the point. They were trying to kill him. And he had to get out of the city. They were trying to kill him. The text says he passed through them unaffected. And so that's why he didn't do any mighty works. It didn't mean he was powerless. It means he didn't want to strike all of them dead. He didn't want to strike them all deaf and dumb. He just got out of there because they were going to try to push him off a cliff. But anyway, think through that just a little bit more. I think you need to relook at the idea. The border's closed. Well,
And that comes from Brian, so I think he would know.
Brian would know. Yeah, he can't. I think he's down in Tennessee or somewhere and would like occasionally to go visit folks. Is our border closed to Canadians?
Not yet.
Huh. So they can come here, we can't go there? I don't know. I'm beginning to think Ohio and Michigan may close their borders to us.
Maybe it will.
Who knows? Well, rats. I may have to talk to my folks up there in Ottawa and do something virtual about it or whatever.
We do have a new topic.
Okay, what you got?
Okay.
This is from Rita, and she says, I heard a comment today about online worship. Basically, it was that people were losing that need to get up, get ready, and go to worship. That they could get up, listen when they wanted, and take communion at their convenience. They thought it was a good thing. I disagreed. Your thoughts?
Okay. What do you think about that? We just kind of stay in our easy chair in our PJs and go to church.
Well, yeah, it's sort of the next best thing. I'd even suggest that, maybe that when we get to church, as long as we're there, we could put the football game up on the big screen, on the big screen and all that.
miss a thing.
And just turn it into what's convenient for us. We kind of a silly thing to think about. Several places talking about our worship. I'm thinking specifically of 1 Corinthians 11.
Okay, go ahead. I turned there. You go ahead.
And 1 Corinthians 11, it talks about when you come together. There is the instruction verse 18. First of all, when you come together in the church, I hear that there be divisions among you, and I partly believe it. So there they were to come together. We read in other passages, and for example, I think it's in Colossians, talking about how we edify one another with our singing. If I'm sitting at home in my living room singing along with a TV screen, that doesn't feel very edifying. I don't see how that I'm going to be edifying other people by knowing that, okay, they're sitting in their home singing along, sort of like a
Mitch Miller.
Mitch Miller, yeah.
Showing your age here.
Yeah, I know it. Mitch Miller, followed the bouncing ball kind of a thing of a sing along.
You mentioned what, verse 16 in 1 Corinthians 11, verse 20. When ye come together, therefore, into one place, he's condemning them. This is not to eat the Lord's Supper.
Right.
So he's condemning them for that. But it was the idea of coming together in one place. You might notice again verse 33. Wherefore, my brethren, when ye come together to eat, that is, to take the supper, tarry one for another. If any man hunger, let him eat at home, that ye come not together unto condemnation. The church came together. It wasn't for a common meal, but those common meals and that ordinary, sit there in your PJs thing was to be done at home. And you can notice a number of passages doing this. The passage that we always quote, or the scripture, whereas the scripture is pretty specific, is Acts 20 and 7. Mm-hmm. And we use that to validate when we're supposed to take the supper. But that's not all it talks about. Upon the first day of the week, hey, there's an example. First day of the week, mm-hmm. when the disciples came together to break bread. So, we're big on that first day of the week. We're big on that's the day we break bread. But what about that came together thing? It's not working here. While you're at it, you might also notice 1 Corinthians 14. And there's several verses here. Verse 23 I want to start with. It says, if the whole church be come together into one place. And then he condemns them for the way in which they were going about their tongue speaking. Then in verse 26, how is it then, brethren, when you come together? Every one of you violates the scriptures. You can see the same sort of thing in several other passages here. He says, let your women keep silence in the churches, in that gathered together situation. So, what about that? I mean, have you forgotten the way you establish Bible authority? And so you've decided, hey, I can stay at home in my house and partake of the supper and not in a come-together situation? Now, if you're ill or if you're unable to get out, that's a different thing. But if you're able and healthy and you can gather with the saints, the church ought to meet. I think to the shame of many churches, they've let the government tell them that they don't have to do what God says do. Now, you may figure out some way to do it that you feel safe with, but the church should come together. Yes, sir.
Well, Rita comments one more time, and she says they claimed that they were getting more people in through their virtual doors than they could get through their physical doors.
Well, if they'd get a baseball team together and build a gym and have instrumental music, a good band, they'll get more. If that's the objective, that we're going to disobey the command of God to gather together in order to get more people. Think about that for just a minute. You sure that's the way we establish Bible authority? Have you forgotten how we go about that? You know, they want to do this in so many churches. Why do we take it every first day of the week? Why would you even have to come every first day of the week? Why gather together every first day? Because you'd get more people if they only had to come every once a quarter. Mm-hmm. And we could have a special service on December 25th and build up everybody, and we'd have a big crowd on December 25th. We'd have sermons about Bible topics like the birth of Christ. Is that how you establish it? Because we can get a big crowd together? If we'd have a fish fry, well, we could get a big crowd, I guess. Free fish, free French fries, and hush puppies, and so forth. We can get a big crowd together if we do that. You got to start looking for your authority, and the Bible says the church comes together. You apparently decided you don't have to do what the Bible says about that. What's next? You're going the same way all the denominations have gone. Let's make it convenient for folks. How do we sing to one another? You know, that's Colossians is passage, I think Alan mentioned Ephesians 5, same sort of thing. Is the idea of our singing to one another. 1 Corinthians 14 we just looked at, talks about us praying as a group. You know that 1 Corinthians 16 talks about us taking up a collection. And how do you do that if you're not there? I guess we'll all just put it in PayPal, and that'll be our collection. But anyway, I'm ashamed of you. I'm ashamed of you. I'm ashamed of a lot of churches of Christ because they've given up on the biblical principle of worshiping. And it just made puerile arguments, childish, denominational arguments to justify it. Somebody argue with me.
Nobody's arguing with you so far.
What are they doing?
You want? I got a new topic though.
Okay, what you got?
All right. From Nathaniel, we have when it says in Mark 1 that Jesus wouldn't permit the demons to speak because they knew him. What does that mean? And then he says, or I should say, explain those relationships.
Okay, Alan, go ahead. Where I got to find that passage he's quoting.
Okay, you find that passage. I'm going to look for another one.
Here we go. Jesus heals a man with an unclean spirit. Yes. Verse 24, Mark 1:24. There was in their synagogue a man with an unclean spirit, and he cried out, saying, Let us alone. What have we to do with thee, thou Jesus of Nazareth? Art thou come to destroy us? I know thee, who thou art, the Holy One of God. And Jesus rebuked him, saying, Hold thy peace, and come out of him. Are you going to comment?
Well, I went to James 2.
I talked too much last time, so it's your turn.
No, you didn't. You did fine. I went to James 2, and James 2:19. You believe there is one God, you do well. The demons also believe and tremble. Yeah. That's the verse that came to my mind when I thought about that. What do the demons know about Jesus? I don't know what they know, but they believe. They believe that he is the Son of God. They believe that he has the power to condemn them, I understand. And they're trembling because of that. And that would make them different. And why would they believe that? Well, they would have been able, I think, to see his works. They would have been able to see what he was doing. They would have been able to see that it was being accomplished through the power of God. They would have known that this was the power of God that was casting them out. And so in that sense, they knew who he was. Anyone who could wield that kind of power had to be of divine origin.
Why did Jesus tell him to be quiet?
Why? I think because I think the same reason he told his disciples, the same reason he told the the man possessed by demons of the Gadarene man who wanted to follow him. The reason he told a lot of other folks said, don't tell anybody about this, is because he was not ready yet to have himself fully revealed as to who he was.
But I want to suggest to you that he didn't want this man. There's some people you just don't want to
Endorse you?
endorse you. You know, because there's the devil endorsing me. What sense does that make? And so Jesus tells him to be quiet. I remember years ago, church I preached at, there was a man there. His wife was a wonderful woman, member of the church, and but they had had a child, and I think it was their only child, who had been riding a bike out alongside a fairly busy highway, Kentucky highway, and the child was hit and killed, and the father saw it. And he blamed God. And yet he knew as much about the scriptures as anybody else. I mean, he would preach to people about what the Bible said and how they need to do this or that or the other. But what good did that do anybody when he didn't live it?
Yeah.
When he was actually in rebellion against God himself. And I think that's the same thing with the devils. This wasn't doing any good, it was hurting. There's some people you just don't want bragging on you, acknowledging you, telling people who you are. Who would believe a devil? And so I believe that that's part of it too. What there was, he asked. There was a second part of his question. The relationship between Jesus and the man, or the relationship between?
I understood between Jesus and the demons.
Yeah. They recognized one another. Mark, I think we're studying here in Mark 1 when we commented about it. Mark puts this here because of the response of the people who saw it. Verse 26, the unclean spirit tearing him and crying with a loud voice came out of him, and they were all amazed insomuch that they questioned among them, saying, what is this, a new teaching? I'm reading out of the American Standard now. With authority he commandeth even the unclean spirits, and they obey him. And I remember pointing out in that Bible class, in the course of it, that this seems to be, Mark doesn't mention many of the miracles of Jesus, but the few he mentions, it's obvious, or for a definite purpose to show the power of Jesus over various things that other men couldn't do. He shows the power greater than the doctors. He shows the power over the nature itself. The winds obey him, and so on it goes. Showed a power over death in healing the centurion's daughter. Yeah, Jairus' daughter. He's not a centurion. He's a
Official.
Ruler of the synagogue. Yeah. So.
One thing that brings to mind a verse that I thought about from time to time, though, when there was one episode, I think it was the man with the Gadarene demons.
Yeah.
When Jesus confronts them, they ask him a question. They said, "Are you come to torment us before the time?"
Yeah.
I've often wondered about that phrasing that given that they asked that question of him, that they understand, or did understand, there is a time appointed when they are going to be punished.
Kiboshed, yeah.
Yeah. Now that may be the day of judgment that they're referring to. I perhaps think that's what is the ultimate outcome for them. But they somehow knew there was a day appointed when they were going to be punished, and they were going to be punished by him. Mm-hmm. And there is a very profound relationship. If you've been promised, John, there's a man that's coming, and he's going to take you away, and he's going to lock you in a pit, and he's going to torment you for a long, long time. And here's his name, and you know his name. And suddenly that man appears. Are you coming now to do this? Something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, it to me it suggests they already knew that much about him.
It's Zechariah 13, which somehow or other, either in personal study with Jeff or whatever, maybe on the program we mentioned a few weeks ago. It shall come to pass in that day, saith Jehovah of hosts, that I will cut off the names of the idols out of the land, and they shall no more be remembered. And also I will cause the prophets and the unclean spirit to pass out of the land. He says in Ephesians, the 2nd chapter, he says that he led captivity captive and gave gifts unto men. And so I think the unclean spirits passed out of this ability to possess men about the same time the miraculous gifts ceased, and we've talked about that, 1 Corinthians 13, other passages. So they knew the time was coming.
Yeah, they knew the time was coming. I found the verse I was looking for. It was the Gadarene demons, or Gergesenes in this particular account in Matthew. Matthew 8:29, they cried out saying, "What have we to do with you, Jesus, you Son of God? Have you come here to torment us before the time?"
Yeah.
And like I said, that phrase has always stuck in my mind, suggesting that they knew what fate was in their future.
Explain to me, since you're there, you can explain something about that to me, since you're a wise man.
Oh, well, we'll see how this goes. All right.
Why did they ask to go into the pigs?
I've wondered that too. I wondered why they.
That's not helping.
Oh,
You're supposed to give me the answer.
they.
Dead air.
I wonder. I have wondered about that too. I have speculated in my mind a number of things that somehow that they needed some kind of a host for some purpose. I don't know what that purpose might have been, but they needed some kind of a host. Another thought was that they thought that perhaps they could escape in that way by getting into the swine. They would somehow be able to escape. Because I've always been curious about why Jesus says go, and so they went out into the herd of swine, and then the whole herd of swine ran violently down a steep place into the sea and perished in the water. Why do that if you're trying to escape? So I'm curious about that whole episode. If somehow they are able to use the swine, maybe with the swine dying, they are able to escape to some nether region or something. I don't know.
I was hoping they drowned with the pigs.
Well, I don't
Somebody
know.
out there who has full knowledge of all this and can explain it all to us, call in.
I would be curious.
Job.
I would be curious to see the explanation of that one. I would really, like to see their rationale. Because,
there you go.
Because as far as I know, we're not told why, and we're not told, how it works quite.
This is what happened.
This is what happened. Yeah.
What is it, Engineer Dave?
Well, we have a few we have a few new topics. But,
Okay.
Well, let's do this. Nathaniel has commented on our previous topic.
Okay.
And he says in quotation marks, as we see the day, let me send this so that everybody can see it. As we see the day approaching, we don't forsake as the interaction, the study, the singing together is a means of edification. Will we sing virtual in heaven?
I don't know. The passage he's quoting is what? Hebrews 10 and verse 23. No, that's not right. I'll get it here in a minute. You'd think I could quote this. I'm looking at the wrong version. Forsake not the assembling of yourselves together. Why can't I just find that?
Hebrews 10:25.
That's the one. You want to read it since you're already there?
I'm not already there. I'm just telling you where it
Oh,
is.
not
Not
forsaking
forsaking
the
the-
assembling of yourselves together as the manner of some is, but exhorting one another, and so much the more as ye see the day approaching. What did he ask about that? Or was he just commenting?
He was commenting.
Okay.
Will we sing virtual in heaven?
He's kibitzing.
He's kibitzing.
Says we'll sing a new song.
But we won't be singing it virtually.
I don't think so. I'm hoping I'll be there, hoping I can be there with that assembled group. What else you got?
Well, this is from Nathaniel again on YouTube.
What? Is he the only guy tonight?
No, but he's the only one asking questions. He says, "Are there demons today? If not, why not?"
You already answered that.
I tried to answer that passage in Zechariah 13 and verse 2 and Ephesians 2, I think, Ephesians 2, and let me find it real quick. Where is it? It's not in Ephesians 2. I knew I would mess up on that.
What's the verse? You remember?
I'm getting older, you know.
Yeah, no.
Here we are. 4 is where I wanted. Verse 8. Wherefore he saith, when he ascended up on high, he led captivity captive and gave gifts unto men. Whatever it was that captivated men contrary to their will was taken away. And in Zechariah 13 says that the prophet and the unclean spirit were going to pass out of the land same time. So we know when the prophet left, so apparently the unclean spirit passed at the same time. Okay. Is Nathaniel asking anything else? Okay.
Brian, however, wants to clarify. He says Brian is in Canada. His fiancée is in Tennessee.
Oh, that's right. Can he come into the U.S.? Is he allowed into the U.S.? Or is the border closed to him?
Well, I don't know. I think he's got other issues trying to get his green card and all.
Yeah, he's trying to get his, he's trying to come down here as a permanent resident and so forth.
There is a comment. Talking about your pigs thing.
Okay.
It's just a funny, but Michael on YouTube says maybe pig gamers.
Pig gamers. Pig gamers. Michael, I don't even know.
Maybe it's pig games. I don't know. Maybe they're playing games with pigs.
I don't know. Maybe that's all those pigs that are in the South rooting up all the crops.
It could be. I don't know.
Pig farmers.
Pig farmers.
Maybe.
He says pig farmers maybe feared going broke if pigs all died.
Well, I know they did. They obviously brought complaint against the Lord for doing it. But there's nothing in that text that says the Lord made those pigs rush into the sea.
Yeah. They did that themselves, apparently.
Apparently, they were a little panicked about the whole thing and lost control and jumped into the ocean. So
And Brian says closed.
the border's closed to him too. Huh. Well, phooey. I was hoping to be able to come up there. It's been good to be with you today. We're going to be meeting tomorrow night at the High School Road Church, 7:30. The adult class I happen to teach is studying in Mark, the 2nd chapter, maybe moving on to the 3rd. And we're going to be meeting Sunday morning at 9:30 for Bible class.
I'm teaching a series on 1 Timothy. We'll be in 1 Timothy, the 5th chapter.
Okay, and then at 10:30 we'll have a worship service. We'll do the same thing at 6 in the evening, another worship service. We do try to wear masks, and we try to social distance, blocking off some of our pews so we're not all cheek by jowl. But we'd love to have you come out and be with us. We hope you will.
We'll find a socially distanced spot for you to sit.
That's right. So, come out and be with us. It's been real good to be with you. If the Lord wills, I think even Alan is going to deign to come one more week before he tries to pretend like he's actually doing something, teaching in school.
Yep.
What's you're still teaching statistics?
Statistics, that's correct.
You're the statistical guy.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it's been good to be with you. If the Lord wills, we'll be back again next week. Good evening to you.